This is good. Please wait a moment. And the clock is ticking. And I think we're good. Cool. All right. I think we got everything all set. Or not. Okay, now we're live. Are we live? It says we're live. But it also says 65 people are waiting. So I'm going to do this, and maybe things will change over here, and then we'll know. It says it's live, though. Can anyone see me? Ah, there we go. Now we've got there. Okay, now we know it's working. Spectacular. Alrighty. Let me see. We've got a hello from Sweden, Florida, Massachusetts, actually Massachusetts, because someone's got Nurgle's blessing. Sorry to hear it, Iron Fang. Texas, Toledo, Ohio. What else have we got? The UK, South Texas. Morning from the Inland Empire in California. Czech Republic, Australia, Brooklyn, Southern New Jersey, Singapore, Berlin, Oakville, Ontario, Germany, England, PA, which I'm going to assume is probably Pennsylvania. Good morning from Dallas, Iowa, Perth. Let me see here. England. Tom Eastwell is beating Panama in the World Cup all by himself. All right. What else have we got? Finland, Detroit. I'll be in Detroit in mid-July, 13th to the 15th. I'll be there for the Midwest Miniature Expo. Denver. Did I say Denver already? I'm saying it again. Cambria, Wisconsin. Connecticut, Sweden. Shreveport, Russia, Maine, Arizona, Hamilton, Ontario says hi, Austria, Atlantis, Georgia. I did not know there was an Atlantis in Georgia. Pontiac, Illinois. That's where they named those cars from. Rhode Island, Naugatuck, Connecticut. Getting some sort of messages. Okay, cool. The Philippines, Northern Ireland. Belgium. Here it is sunny and a little warm, but not terrible. I'm a little warm currently myself, but I think it's just because I got out of the shower not too long ago, so I'm still not quite completely dry. Kelly Audia says, hello, Adam and Nick Raimondo behind you. In the Patreon show yesterday, we decided that the cello case's name is Nick Raimondo. If you've not... In the past, there was... Someone pointed out that when I did the video about Necromunda, if you watched the captions that YouTube put in, it didn't know what to do with the word Necromunda, so it just kept referring to, when I would say that, it would say Nick Raimondo. And so that's been kind of an in-joke sort of amongst some of the patrons and stuff like that. And so that's my wife's cello case, and she said it's okay. So that's Nick Raimondo back there. If I could get him to like do something, like be a straight man or something, that'd be great. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so sunny, not too warm, not too bad. Let me see here. Kentucky, Pittsburgh, Austin, Texas. VJ Morph is here from the Sydney, Australia. WasPeace asks, what's the cost for the Midwest event in Detroit? I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what the cost is. I'll be doing my, what do you call it, my YouTube seminars, the ones that I teach at conventions. I'll be doing one about technical details and stuff like that, and the other one's more about content and strategy and marketing and things like that. So I'm kind of... what do you call it? I guess I'm to some degree an invited guest. But if you look at the website, if you just do a search for, I think it's, I don't know if they have a website or if it's just on Facebook. But yeah, Midwest Miniature Expo, you can probably find the information there. Let's see here. What else have we got? Jeff Muncie says, hello from the land of Gen Con. That's Indianapolis, Indiana, to the rest of you. I'll be not there this year, sadly. Well, I mean, sort of sadly. I was there last year. I was not there the year previous, 2016. I was there 2015 and most of the years before that. I'd love to go, but I'd also love to stay in a hotel that was somewhere near the downtown area so I didn't have to like park and walk and all that stuff. Not that I'm against walking. It's the trick is that there's times you want to get together like at night and hang out with people and stuff like that, and then kind of stumble back to your hotel room later in the evening, like or very early in the morning, and then get up and do it again the next day. But if you were like, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and now you have to go get your car out of the parking thing and then drive for half an hour to your hotel. That really kind of bums you out. At least it does me. So for me, that's kind of a big deal. And because it's becoming so difficult with Gen Con to get hotels downtown because of the lottery system that they've got going on, which is really weird. At least for this year, definitely not going. So yeah, that's where that's going right now. Let me see here. Flint, Michigan. Seoul, South Korea. What else have we got? Tolmart Graybeard says, just getting into tabletop gaming, very excited. Well, good. Glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear you're getting into it. It's really, it is the focus of this channel, frankly, to try to get people into tabletop wargaming and to keep people in tabletop wargaming and to reintroduce people who have lapsed to get them back into tabletop gaming. It's a big thing to, in my opinion, get those folks, because I find it the hobby portion of it, I find very stress relieving when I can come home and then, go into my hobby room and work on models and work on painting models and work on building them and whatever. That to me is very stress relieving. And I think all of us need some sort of stress relief in our lives. So I think that's why I push the hobby like I do. Yesterday, let's see, what was I doing last night? Last night I was building my Sherman T for Conflict 47. So most of you are probably familiar with the Sherman tank from World War II. This is, I believe, it's an M4A9, which never actually existed. Conflict 47 is an alternate history World War II game. The Sherman T is called the Sherman T because instead of a normal gun on it, it has a Tesla cannon. So, yeah, the whole concept behind Conflict 47 is that when we tested our first nuke in Los Alamos, we ripped a little hole in reality and a radio signal came out, and we started decoding the radio signal, and it taught us all kinds of crazy technology, and then things just kind of progressed from there. So the reason it's called Conflict 47 is because it's 1947, and even though we, and then eventually the Axis and everybody else got all kinds of crazy superpower, like technology, it did not end the war as quickly as it did in the real timeline. It actually is still going on in 1947. But you have like cool, like walking tanks, like mechs almost, and you've got guys in power armor, and you still got guys with regular rifles and stuff like that too. But it's compatible with bolt action. It's made by the same people as bolt action, and it's really cool. I'm getting my army ready to go for Valhalla in the fall because we're going to be running a lot of Conflict 47 at Valhalla. Me and some other people I know are going to be running a bunch. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So let's see, what else have we got here? Just started painting miniatures Star Wars Legion about 5 weeks ago, thanks to your channel and Miniac. Thanks for the great advice. Star Wars Legion is, I played a demo of it a while back, and it's interesting. I don't know, because I've got enough stuff to do right now, I don't know that it's for me at this point. I really like the orders kind of mechanic, like how you activate stuff. I like that a lot. I think that's a really cool thing. I like the Rebel sculpts. I'm not a big fan of the Empire sculpts. I don't know what it is, but all the Empire sculpts to me seem not particularly dynamic. I mean, it's not that I want, stormtroopers to be leaping about and doing all kinds of interpretive dance type moves as they're trying to shoot, but like Darth Vader's sculpt, it looks like he's got like his lightsaber in one hand and the other hand he's reaching over like he's like just getting something off the shelf, like at Aldi or whatever. And he's just like, oh yeah, look at that, mixed nuts. He's just, it's not a very good pose. I don't know, but I like the sculpts for Rebels quite a bit. JP got rockets. Good morning from the pocket dimension between Kentucky and Ohio. Hello, JP. JP and I met at Origins. We were there, and he stopped by the booth and brought me that bottle right there of Maker's Mark. So that was very nice. And it got home safely. So that was also good. What else have we got? Joshua Daniel Flores says, I'll be teaching my first painting workshop next Saturday, hoping to get more people into the hobby. Good on you. I think it's something that we should all be trying to do if we can. Partially, not completely altruistically, partially you get more people in the hobby, you got more people to play with, at the very least. More people in the hobby means that the hobby businesses do a little better, which means they probably produce more, or, just things like that. It's when a hobby gets very, very niche, then it becomes more and more difficult for people to some degree, to be able to produce things. Like nice, really hard plastic miniatures and things like that are very expensive to produce. Whereas like metal miniatures and even resin miniatures are less expensive to produce, but a lot of people prefer plastic. But, so like you can, obviously now with 3D printing and things like that, there's plenty of small kind of cottage industries within our niche that you can get into, and that people can start little businesses making laser cut terrain or laser cut tokens and all that kind of junk. But yeah, anyway, so it's just a good idea to get more people into the hobby. Let's just say how that's going. The Chronic Toast. Sorry, I'm late, from Utah. The Chronic Toast is the person that I was talking about before, who's going to be running the Conflict 47 thing at Valhalla. Looking forward to it quite a bit. Let me see here. Valhalla's Guard. Do you think Dust for 1947 will gain more of a following? Well, they had a good-sized booth at a... Did they have a booth at Adepticon? I don't remember if they had a booth at Adepticon, but at Origins, where I just was last weekend, they had a decent-sized booth. And so they got a ton of product, man. Like a lot. I don't know anybody who plays, but I do see them at conventions all the time, and they've got a lot of product and a good-sized booth. So I hope it will, I mean, I like alternate history stuff anyway, so that's cool, and their models are awesome. I've looked at the rules, and I don't know that they're necessarily for me. I personally prefer the rules for Conflict 47, or I prefer the old Dust Warfare rules that were written by Andy Chambers and Mac Martin. But that's not, I mean, obviously I'm not everybody, so just because I'm not interested in the rules doesn't mean other people won't be. So yeah, it's cool. They're, like I said, amazing models. Awesome. Let me see here. What else? I might need to make a tiny jar of mixed nuts and add it to the mini of Vader now. Well, if you want to do that, you could do that. I mean, people would understand the pose a little bit better, I think. Dust also had some crazy sales last year at Gen Con, according to JP Got Rockets. Yeah, I do remember them being at Gen Con last year. They also had a good-sized booth there. Where else was I recently that they had a good-sized booth? It was Origins. Oh, was it Reno? Maybe when I was at Reno. No, it wasn't Reno. I don't know. It was some other convention I was at recently. They had a pretty good-sized booth. I'm being told that they also had a nice booth at Adepticon. So, yeah, they've obviously been pushing it hard, so... Jason Miller says, thanks for taking that picture with me at Origins to torment my buddy Scott. Yes, good to see you, Jason Miller. Let me see here. What else have we got? VJ Morph says, anything written by Andy Chambers is going to be good. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I really like the rule sets that he writes. So when I heard that he was, like, when Dust Tactics first came out, it was basically a board game. It was played on a giant grid. And I was like, oh, those models are awesome, and I love the concept, but the game is just looked really dull to me. I tried to play it. I just did not like it. But when they said, hey, now we're going to make a full-on war game that doesn't go on a grid, and you play it like a normal war game with like regular dice, not regular dice, they had their own special dice, of course. But you play it like a normal war game with tape measures and all that jazz. I was like, cool. And then when I saw that it was going to be written by Mac Martin, who had written a bunch of rules for Malifaux, I'm like, well, that's really cool. And then when I saw that it was Andy Chambers as well, I was like, well, heck yeah. And yeah, that's an amazing rule set. And I was really bummed that Fantasy Flight got into I don't even know what happened. It seems like it was some sort of pissing match between Fantasy Flight the people who own the Dust franchise, Battlefront, it hopped around a whole bunch. So I don't know a lot behind it, but I just know that I can still, obviously, if I want to, play Dust Warfare. That's the upside of tabletop gaming, is that you can certainly keep playing it as long as you want. But it sometimes is difficult, obviously, if there's like no new FAQs, if there's no new stuff coming out. I can still play with the stuff I've got, admittedly. But at this point now, I'm also finding more people that are interested in playing Conflict 47, so that's kind of the way I've gone with that. Joe Mo says, I just painted up a bunch of Star Wars Legions. The AT-ST and the Airspeeder are very crisp sculpts. The actual foot soldiers are a bit... Oops, it just scrolled. Are a bit rougher in some areas. Some details are not as crisp. I think that's where I was playing... When I played the demo at the shop, I was playing Rebels. And I thought the Rebel models were pretty crisp. Yeah, so I thought that they were pretty cool. But like I said, and I also thought the poses were a little bit better. But yeah. So we'll see. Yeah, the AT-ST and the Airspeeder thing are nice looking sculpts as well. So the AT-ST is Empire. So it's not like everything on the Empire is bad. Don't get me wrong. It's just that the normal size troops I found to be a little squishy. And I'm not talking about the actual material. I mean, there's just not as much details I would like. So yeah. Walking Shadow asks, are there any conventions in the Phoenix area? I don't know. And the problem is it's sort of hard to look. You know what I mean? We are at Game 4 going to sort of try to fix that if we can. Like, we're doing that obviously with game stores. It's very easy to find game stores now pretty much anywhere you go if you use the Game 4 app. Like, anywhere you travel, you pull up the Game 4 app, it'll show you the closest game stores. We've got 6,200 plus game stores worldwide in that database. Conventions are a little bit tougher, but we've had a lot of people ask about it, and it is something that we are trying to figure out what we're going to do with and how we're going to go in that direction. So I don't think I have a little thingy for Game 4 yet. I got to make one, though. I do. I got one for T-shirts. So if you want to buy some T-shirts, you could go to the merch bunker there and get some. I've got a Patreon one. I've got a TMX 18 one, that's already passed, so don't do that. Yeah, I don't have one for Game 4, but I need to put it in there. If you want to go to Game 4, it is www.iamgamefor.com. So yeah, that's pretty much it. But we're working on some sort of concept on what to do with conventions, because it would be very nice for people to be like, hey, what conventions are coming up, and be able to kind of, because right now you're looking at Facebook, the web, Warhorn is, I think, still around. There's like 2 or 3 other kind of, like, you can go to like the Steve Jackson Games website. Sometimes some conventions are listed there in their convention list. You guys in the chat might have other places to go look, but I don't know of one right now. I know there's a Comic-Con in Phoenix, but I don't know of a gaming convention. Let me see here. Adam, how easy is it for store owners to post their store events on their website and Game 4 at the same time? Currently, it's something they got to do both, but very soon we will be launching something in Game 4 so that you put the events into Game 4, and then it will either add it to Google Calendar if you use that on your website, or we have a widget that you'll be able to just put onto your website, and eventually a plugin, like if you use WordPress. That you will just be able to plop there on your website, and then it will automatically grab all your store's events and put them out there, so that you only have to enter it once. Currently, that's not a thing yet, but it is going to be probably by the end of summer, if not a little bit quicker. Well, somewhere around there. That's the plan, at least. Yeah, because we've gotten feedback from stores saying, hey, I don't want to have to put everything in twice, but you can't. The thing is we cannot make it so that the stuff you put into Facebook or the stuff that you put into Game 4, they will not cross-pollinate, because Facebook does not like to play. They don't want anybody's stuff going in or out of Facebook. So that's a bummer right now, but that's the way that they've got it set up. So there's nothing we can do about that. There's just no API. Everything's all locked down. Let me see here. Adam, how do you feel about tabletop wargaming with articulating figures, like actual figures? You mean like action figures? I mean, I know years ago there was a game made by WizKids that was based off of Shadowrun, which is kind of a cyberpunk RPG that was originally made by FASA back in the day and is now owned by Catalyst Games, who are the guys who also do BattleTech. So, but back then, not Wizards of the Coast, WizKids made this game, and it was basically, they were tall figures. They were like bigger than G.I. Joes or like Star Wars guys. They were like, I don't know, 6-7 inches tall. And they had like interchangeable guns and stuff, and their arms and elbows and all that junk moved. But they were on this big base where it had like a little drawer, and you could keep all those extra parts in there. And then there were like little, it was almost like clicks because it was, it was WizKids. So there was all kinds of stuff on the base to see. And then I don't know, it was, nobody bought it. Yeah, I mean, the concept of having pre-painted miniatures does relatively well in wargaming. You see that obviously with X-Wing. You see it with some older games like Star Wars Miniatures, which was made back in the day by Wizards of the Coast. The D&D skirmish game that Wizards of the Coast made with pre-painted miniatures, that did okay for quite a while. But the issue is kind of just that, I don't know. The action figure thing, I mean, that's a whole other thing. It costs a lot more. You probably can't take as many of them. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So there's that, yeah. Let's see here. Uncle Adam, I told my wife that since Adepticon is around my birthday, that it would be an awesome gift for me. LOL, hint dropped. Well, that's a good plan. I think it's not a bad plan at all. Yeah, definitely. Randall says this year's Adepticon was a lot of fun, great experience. Adepticon, and I've said this I don't know how many times before, Adepticon's my favorite convention. It's really great. That being said, Origins this year, I really liked Origins. It's like the second largest game convention in the country. It was they announced it was probably around 18,000 uniques this year, meaning there was 18,000 people there, roughly. Like if a person was there all 4 days, there's uniques and there's what they call turnstile. So, one person who goes to the show every day and goes in and out of the turnstiles, even though there weren't actually turnstiles, but it's a thing. Like you basically go in and out the door. Turnstile in that situation is a big number and doesn't really matter, but it sometimes shows maybe if like people only showed up for 1 day. If like the turnstile number on a 4-day convention is a lot closer to the unique number, then that means that a lot of people only came maybe 1 or 2 days. But if the turnstile number is this huge number in comparison to the uniques, then a lot of those people came and stayed for all 4 days. Anyway, the uniques are really what I think are important. And the uniques were like right over 18,000, I guess, this year. That's what they've reported. So that's a decent amount of people. And it was a good convention. I mean, it's not got a lot of wargaming going on. If you want just straight wargaming, Adepticon is still totally the best. But if you do want to go and have like some wargaming, but also RPG, if you're into like RPGs, you're into CCGs, you're into board gaming and that kind of stuff, there's a lot of other things going on there that are really cool. So yeah, I was pretty impressed with it, honestly. Ming Lord says, FASA, did they do Star Trek as well? They did. They did the Star Trek Tactical Combat Simulator, which I used to play when I was like 20. So it was a long time ago. But we used to play it on the dining room table with another friend of mine who was a big Star Trek fan, but was not super into tabletop gaming. So I kind of taught him how to play, and we had a good time with it. It was super fiddly and there was a lot of bookkeeping, but at the time I enjoyed it quite a bit. Chronic Toast says, I have my BattleTech 2018 starter box on order. Are you jumping back in? Wargamer Girl said in her last live stream that BattleTech was strong in her area still. Probably not straight BattleTech, no. So when I was at Origins, I stopped by the Catalyst booth and talked to them about it. They had a special, so they've got BattleTech, which they're basically redoing the look of, but they're really not changing much of the rules as far as I can tell. So it's still basically classic BattleTech, but they're using the new logo that the video game company actually kind of made. I can't remember. Harebrained Schemes is the name of the video game company. They made a video game recently of BattleTech, which is actually super good. But anyway, they're using now that logo instead of the classic BattleTech logo for their new books, and they're reproducing new books, but I don't think they're changing a ton. Like, they're probably fixing errata and stuff like that, but there's not changing a lot of things. Then the other part of BattleTech is something called Alpha Strike. So Alpha Strike is designed to be a stripped down kind of streamlined version of BattleTech, which I'm more interested in because BattleTech is really fiddly in my opinion. Again, a lot of bookkeeping. So I was interested in First Strike, so they're like, hey, cool, well, we've got this deal during the convention. Normally, each of these boxes of models, and it was like a lance for each model, so that's about 4 mechs. They're like, look, if you buy all 7 of these boxes, which are normally $20 a piece, instead of paying, instead of $20 a box, it was something like $70 for all 7 boxes, or maybe even 50. It was like a really super good deal. And I was like, that really, I like good deals. And I'm like, cool. So then what about the rules? And they're like, oh, yeah, no, the rules aren't going to be out. The rules aren't going to be reprinted until October. And I was like, what? In my opinion, Catalyst has a problem with production. And the fact that, like, because they didn't have the rule book at Gen Con last year either. Like, they made the first, or Alpha Strike stuff, and then it disappeared, and it's taken them more than a year to get it back again. And Catalyst has done this kind of stuff before. They made this awesome game called Leviathans that was like alternate history, kind of World War I, that had these floating battleships. Like, they figured out how to make battleships lighter than air, so they just started flying battleships around instead of like keeping them on the water. And that game was 3 years late. And it's just, and it's not that they were like, it's almost never, from what I understand, that they're like slacking. It's that the manufacturers they use over in China have a tendency to just screw things up or whatever the problem is, and I don't know the long and short of it. But the long and short of it is I did not buy all those models so that I could wait until October to get a book. So once Alpha Strike comes out, I will probably look at it very strongly because I'm interested in a simpler, less bookkeeping-oriented BattleTech game. But for right now, I just like, I don't know. Maybe they've got a PDF of it that I could have, purchased online, but they didn't say anything with like, well, we got a PDF too, or an ebook or whatever. You've got a digital copy you could buy. They were just like, oh yeah, the book's not going to be available till October. So I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, I've got friends living in Wisconsin. There's a lot of paper here. I've got friends who work for printing companies who tell me all the time, at this point specifically, if you just want to get a book printed for gaming, it is just as cheap to get it printed in America than it is to get it printed in China, except it's in America and you can get in a car and drive to the printer and pick it up if you have to. You don't have to wait for it to come across on a boat and go through all that rigmarole. But a lot of in the gaming industry, a lot of producers and publishers still think, well, I can only get my stuff done in China because it's the cheapest. And for plastics and things like that, that's probably still the case. But for just you're getting a book printed, take a look at America. And I'm not even trying to get like political. I'm just saying you can get in the car and drive to Wisconsin and pick it up, or get a truck if you have a whole bunch. But it's just you can't do that if that car will not float to get to China. So FYI. Let me see here. Question: how do you solve the problem of found awesome models but no decent rules to use them with? I have 2 such: Warlord Games Landsknecht, I don't know what that is, and GW Lizardman. I would tell you to go look at, especially with the Lizardman, I'd tell you to go look at a game called Song of Blades and Heroes. It's made by Ganesha Games. I don't know how you pronounce it. It's the elephant god from Hindu and whatnot. But it's written by a guy in Italy who's very nice, and he's written a whole bunch of different games. But Song of Blades and Heroes is a great kind of fun little skirmish game for fantasy type stuff. And there's also advanced Song of Blades and Heroes if you want to get a little bit fancier, but it's a very elegant system. The PDF for Song of Blades and Heroes, last time I looked, was $8. And I think if you want to get a print-on-demand copy of the book, and like have an actual paper copy, I think it's like $15 plus probably shipping. So that's one of my favorite little kind of skirmishy games. I use it to teach at conventions quite frequently too. And so yeah, there are rule sets out there that are model agnostic, and they don't require you to use any specific brand of model. And I would look towards those if you've got models you like that, but they're attached to systems that you don't care for. George says, man, Leviathans looked amazing. I wanted to play it so much. I did eventually get a copy, and it is a super cool game, but yeah, it took a really, really, really long time. So, yeah. Battletech is very bookkeeping. No, it is. It is very bookkeeping. There's many, many bookkeepings to do. VJ Morph says, yeah, I'm going to get my group into Alpha Strike with the old minis box I bought when it was reprinted about 10 years ago. DJ Todd P. Harris says, I heard Alpha Strike. What did I miss? Well, I kind of went on about that stuff. Let me see here. Ryan Ford. Hey, Uncle Adam, first time catching the Sunday show live. Well, glad to have you. I've got a second to Song of Blades and Heroes because it's a great game. Ariel says, good morning from Apopka, Florida. Do you guys think that the next Underworld starter box will follow suit with the same theme? I get the feeling it's not going to be Shadespire. I think it's going to be a new location, but I don't know which one. They've almost kind of hinted as such, because if I guess the cards are all numbered and they all have like a number that like it's like this card is 23 out of 472 or whatever. And eventually now all the cards up to 472, which is a number I just made up. So, take that as an example. All the cards are now like spoken for. And so people are like, so are you just not going to make Shadespire anymore? And they're like, well, and they haven't really said, but I think because the game is called Warhammer Underworlds, Shadespire, I think that we can expect another game to be Warhammer Underworlds, Cincinnati, or whatever, I don't know, whatever, location they're going to have to be. Now, the question that's really important to me, to some degree, is will they be compatible? Will you be able to take your skeleton dudes from Shadespire and fight against, hopefully, lizard people from the next game? Seraphon, whatever they're called. I'm really hoping they do, and I hope that they're very compatible that way, because, yeah, that will be a bummer otherwise. Because then otherwise you'll have to have like Shadespire tournaments and next thing tournaments, and they have to be separate. That all being said, there's going to be a marketing problem. Like last year at this year at Adepticon, there was a 133 person like Shadespire tournament. So people are going to be calling it Shadespire, even though if you have the next set and they're compatible backwards in the whole thing, and the next one's called whatever it's called, are people just going to keep calling the whole game Shadespire? You know what I mean? Or are they going to call it eventually, Warhammer Underworlds, or just Underworlds? Right now, everyone's calling it Shadespire, because that's what we know. But once there becomes two of them, what are they going to do? I don't know. So, we'll see. DJ Todd P. Harris is on the fence about getting Imperial Knights miniatures. Any thoughts? I own one, and I'm going to build it and make it AdMech, and it's going to be cool. If you like that kind of thing, that'd be the kind of thing you'd like. I don't know, man. It's different. It's... if you play Eldar, no, I wouldn't do that. But if you do have anything that's even vaguely Imperial adjacent, you can easily bring that in as a Vanguard, or I forget which detachment, but you could bring it in as a detachment for fun games. And from everything that I've talked to, like I said, I haven't started building it yet, but from everyone I've talked to, they're all like, yeah, that's a really fun model to build and paint. So I'm looking forward to it when I get to that point. But it will be part of my Adeptus Mechanicus detachment, which will be attached from time to time in bigger games to my Space Marines. So we're got that going on. Matthias says, is this not about Age of Sigmar 2 and Soul Wars? Yeah, it is. I mean, we're getting there. If this is your first time to the show, generally I don't talk the entire 2 hours about the subject. I talk maybe 20 minutes or so about the subject. So, sorry about that. But yeah, we kind of go through back and forth on a bunch of different stuff, and people ask questions, and I get answers, and then whatever. And then eventually I'm like, okay, well, it's about such and such time, and then I bring it out. So that's coming. It's sitting right back here, actually, the box. So we got that going on. If I just talked about like one subject for 2 hours, then the chat wouldn't be super useful, because then I wouldn't, I'd just be talking about stuff. I can do it. I can talk for 2 hours. I'll do it. Adam, good morning from Kuwait. Why GW refuses to have all Age of Sigmar Skaven clans under one battle tome like the Legion of Nagash? I don't know. I think it's because they've got... I guess I'm in my eye. Sorry. I think it's because they've got a bunch of different types of Skaven. You've got Scan Pestilens, which is basically very Nurgly. You've got a bunch of other ones. Scan Pestilens, Clan Pestilence is really the only one that I generally use for the most part, because in my Chaos army there's a lot of Nurgle, so I grab the Nurgly Skaven dudes to bring them in so that the keywords match up better, so I don't end up diseasing my own guys very much. But yeah, so I don't know, frankly, why they don't have a bunch of different, like why the battle tomes are done in the way that they're done. I'm a soup player, which is to say I've got an army of chaos, and it's got a lot of different stuff in it. It's got Beastmen in it. It's got Skaven in it. It's got regular, like, Slaves to Chaos. It's got Everchosen or whatever. It's got a lot of different junk in it. Because I'm not one of those guys that's like, well, I have to be faction pure so I get these special bonuses. I just like what I like, so I just put it all together. And one of the reasons I like Age of Sigmar is because I can just slop a whole bunch of stuff together, and as long as it's all order, or it's all destruction, or it's all death, or it's all, chaos, then it's fine. And it may not be tactically the best plan, but I'm not known for my tactics. Let's just say that. So I just want to have fun and kind of go that way. Wub says, I keep going a step too far with my painting and screwing it up. How do I learn to just stop? I did a video about that last year, I think, called Knowing When to Quit. And so I would watch that if you get the chance. I could do a Pachow here, but it won't work because I can't do live Pachows, sadly. But yeah, there's a video called Knowing When to Quit. And I think it's important because there are times when you're like, well, just what if I keep, and then you screw it up. You know what I mean? So you sometimes you have to be able to sit back and look at it, maybe set it down, come back to it a couple days later and look at it, like work on something else, but then come back at it and go, okay, no, I was done. As opposed to like you're on a roll, so you just keep trying to push it and then you screw it all up. Frankie Lee Bailey says, I've just purchased a Warden and a set of each of the Armigers, the little small ones. I've now got a big 2 paint stack. Yeah, you do. Just surface area. You've got a big paint stack, definitely. Yeah. DJ Todd P. Harris says, so they can be attached to Imperial Guard armies. They need to be in a separate detachment, but technically yes. So you could have a detachment or several detachments of Imperial Guard, and then you could bring in a separate detachment. From what I understand, even with the new FAQ, what was happening in the past was people were just making a single detachment and just putting tons of different stuff in there, and it was technically legal because they all had the Imperial keyword. Now, they have to have, like, the Imperial keyword, the Chaos keyword doesn't count. So just because they have Imperial doesn't mean they automatically get to be in the same detachment anymore. So you can't do that. But if you have a detachment or several detachments of just all Imperial Guard, and then you have a separate detachment in your army that is, say, just the Knight, you could do that, from what I understand. So yeah, definitely. Warhammer Underworld's Glasgow would be hardcore. Yeah, that's true. It's a good point. Kelly asks, have you ever thought about a segment where you bring up Facebook showcase pictures in live shows and commenting? Might drive traffic on both platforms. Vince does something similar. Vince, he's referring to there, is Vince Venturella from his channel, which is Vince Venturella. I did a video, right after I started the Paint Showcase Club, I did a video where I went through that month's submissions, whatever, posts, and grabbed like 10 that I really liked and then kind of posted them and stuff like that. That took a ton of work on my part, so I decided I wasn't going to try to do it every month, especially as the group started to grow. Like, that was the first month the group was out there. As the group grows now, it's crazy. I mean, it's almost at 12,000 people in that group, and it's difficult. There's a potential to be able to do that, maybe. I mean, I could just, bring it up and kind of scroll through and show stuff that's going on there on the Facebooks. I'll think about it. It's not a bad idea, certainly. The Chronic Toast says, have you heard any news, updates, rumors on Gilman as an AOS 40k army? Wet Elves have not made a big splash here locally. I see what you did there with the Wet Elves and the splash. I haven't really heard anything about Gillmen, but if Gillmen are basically them actually doing Fishmen, then I'm all for it. But we'll see. Yeah, definitely. But I haven't heard much about it. I know that there was some reference slightly in some of the fluff talking about it, and it would be awesome if they were to release some like really cool fish dudes, because I would buy them and paint them and not even use them in Age of Sigmar. I would just want them, you know what I mean? I think that's basically about it. What else have we got here? Morning, Adam. Just came back to 40K after 13 years out. 5th edition, I think. Your videos have been very useful and motivating over the last few weeks. Thank you. Well, I appreciate it. I'm glad to help. Absolutely. Let me see here. WasPeace says, I'm really digging the Age of Sigmar miniatures. Yeah, I mean, there's some that I'm not necessarily fond of just aesthetically. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of the new Deepkin, aka Wet Elves. I know that they're technically done very well. They're very well sculpted. But they're not like my particular flavor interest or whatever. Like I'm not aesthetically interested in them or interested in the fluff or the army, and I'm just not an elf guy. So there's that. But I know that they're well done. Now the new ones that are coming out of the box here. From the new whatever Night Haunts and stuff like that, these are technologically very, very well done and completely right up my alley. I don't know if this will ever focus. Oh, it did. That's weird. So yeah, like these guys, someone asked in the comments of the recent video, they're like, oh, well, you shouldn't put such a bright light on the top of them so we can see the paint job. Well, that actually is the paint job. In that picture, it did look like they were being lit very brightly from above, and that was causing like a very high contrast, but I actually kind of painted them that way. Here you can see it's not quite as, because we're getting a bunch of weird reflections on the black parts at the bottom there. But yeah, they definitely were a pretty high contrast, white from above, black from, basically I primed them all black with my airbrush. Then I took white primer and I spritzed them all from above to give them that kind of top-down lighting look. And then I also, down here by my fingers, I also did their base there in white. And then to get them to look real green, man, this color is really flat on this camera. But to get them to that real bright green and all that stuff, I used secret weapon washes, which are basically glazes, as I've said before, and as the maker of them has said before as well. But I've used those to give that kind of green ghostly glow as they come up out of the ground, graveyard, whatever. And then, they go from that direction. Oops, I'm in focus again. But, yeah, these are great models. These are spectacular models. And I was pretty happy with the paint job. Come on. I was pretty happy with the paint job I was able to get, but now you can't see it because it won't focus. But it was a quick paint job, which was a big deal, too. So, why don't we look at the box? We'll get that out of the way. All right, so if I can get to... Jeez. It is super heavy. All right, so this is the box. This is Soul Wars. Like I said, they delivered it. I got it delivered on Friday, so not this past Friday, but the Friday before. But I was in Columbus at Origins, so I didn't get back until 3 o'clock in the morning on Monday morning, and then that day I discovered that it had been delivered. So I didn't get to start building until Monday night. But anyway, so it slides apart thusly. So it's not like a box top. It's more like a sleeve. Okay, that's upside down. Anyway, this is the top part, and the top part is got all the models in it. So I'm going to set this down here. Try not to spill my coffee. Okay. So it comes with this box, which is now not upside down, which has got this super sweet piece of artwork on it, which is what's going on over here in the title card. See, same piece of artwork. Okay. So, excuse me, you open it up, and inside there's instructions on how to build stuff, which are full color and very specific, which is really nice. You get this weird, sweet piece of bubble wrap, which you can pop or whatever, and a bunch of bases, and then the new style GW sprues, where everything is kind of puzzle pieced and Tetris together to make as little wasted space as possible. Now, I will admit, when you compare this sprue to one of the new Necromunda sprues, The Necromunda sprues are way tighter than this, like so much tighter. And I don't know what the technical reasoning for that is, if it has something to do with the manufacturer or where it's being done or whatever. These, like, I could fit my pinky finger through some of these holes, but the new Necromunda sprues, you cannot. They are there's so much stuff packed into basically just 2 sprues in the box. You can make 10 guys. Like, I just recently got the Van Saar box for Necromunda. Actually, a friend of mine gave it to me, and it was like a present thing for my birthday, which is not here yet. But anyway, it's like there's 10 guys you can build in that box. There's only 2 sprues that are this size, and they are just so tightly packed you can barely get clippers in there. It's just amazing. This is not as tightly packed, but if you go back and look at a bunch of the old GW sculpts or kits, like if you go back and look at Space Marine Scouts, you can nearly fit your wrist through some of the holes in those sprues. But this is very tightly packed. There's a lot of usage going on here because of also the very dynamic style to the way that they're modeled and stuff. So anyway, these are obviously ghost dudes. These are Nighthaunt. These are the real little guys. I can't think of their names off the top of my head. This was the sprue that now you see all these giant holes. Those are left from doing the Grimghast Reapers that I did, the 4 of them. But there's other guys on here. And there's like integrated bases. Like you can see here, like that guy's got a base that's got like an old, cemetery fence on it and stuff like that. So they've got very kind of interesting bases and that way. But yeah, there's like at the bottom, there's all the Stormcast guys. But they're basically just, it's a lot of plastic. It's a heavy portion, and then there's this huge bag of bases, lots and lots and lots of bases, so you're all set on that as well. But that is not the entire box, that's just the modeling part. Inside the main box, you've got the core rules. So this is the just regular old, this is what you can download now. If you go to the ageofsigmar.com website, you can download now this document. Okay, this is the old rules were 4 pages. There was no artwork. It was just very small text, 3 columns. This new one is 18 pages, but as I showed you on the Friday show, it's got lots of artwork and diagrams and things like, oh, this is what happens, and then these 2 guys die, and this is what happens when this happens, just all that kind of jazz. So it's a lot more explanatory than the last one was. The last one caused there was some ambiguity, which they thought maybe people were going to be okay with. They thought, well, if we just do some, if we do some of that kind of stuff, we just kind of are ambiguous, then people will be like, okay, well, they'll make up their own house rules. Well, people don't like to do that, as it turns out, or at least not a lot of people like to do that. So anyway, the point is that they've gone through and made things very, very clear now with this book. But like I said, right now, if you go to, I think it's ageofsigmar.com, you can download this PDF right now if you want to. And because all the stuff I'm showing you, this stuff doesn't come out until next Saturday, or this upcoming Saturday, technically, the 30th. But for right now, you can download and start playing because, the War Scrolls really haven't changed. So the War Scrolls haven't really changed. It's been the rules. The main changes that I've been seeing, there's some kind of new stuff to magic. You can now dispel magic at 30 inches instead of only 18, which causes there to be a little bit more magical kind of back and forth and fighting, which I think is cool. The inherent commander abilities, which only used to be Inspiring Presence, and then whatever your War Scroll said for your commander, now there's Inspiring Presence and 2 movement-based ones. One is called, what the heck is it called? At the double, and the other one is called Forward to Victory. And one of them allows you to basically, if you want to make a run, it's just automatically a 6 if you use that power. And the other one is you get to re-roll your charge. The trick is that now there's also command points. So you spend command points to do those command things. They're not just like a spell you just get to do. You have to spend command points to do it. But you get a new command point every turn. Plus you start with X amount of command points based off of how many War Scrolls you have in your army. So if you only have like 3 War Scrolls in your army because everything's all the same stuff, you're only going to get 3 command points. But if you've got a lot of different stuff, you get more command points for having more varied units in your army, which is kind of cool. And if you wanted to do Inspiring Presence on 3 different units, you could do it as long as you're spending the command points and you have the command points to spend. From what I understand, that's the way it seems to go. So that's cool. Also, you can't be in hand-to-hand combat, and I mentioned this on Friday's show. You can't be in hand-to-hand combat and then just shoot somebody way over there. You know what I mean? You have to only shoot people. If there's somebody within 3 inches of you who's an enemy, you have to shoot them if you're a shooter. Oh gosh, what else? There's some other stuff in here, but again, it's not huge changes. Oh, you can garrison now, which you didn't have the ability to do. Certain types of buildings, castles and stuff like that, your people can go inside of it and then basically be counted as being inside, and then they get some benefits and bonuses. So you can garrison a terrain feature, which is kind of a newer thing. What else? The cover, they've explained that better. Allocating wounds, they've explained a lot better, which is really nice, because before it was very confusing until the second FAQ came out. You've got a Lookout Sir kind of a situation, which is not anything like 40K's Lookout Sir. It's more of a, if your commander is standing near a unit of at least 3 non-commanders, and within, was it 3 inches? You must subtract 1 from hit rolls made for missile weapons if the target of the attack is an enemy hero, so it's not just commander, but any enemy hero, that is within 3 inches of an enemy unit that has 3 or more models. So if you've got a hero that's within 3 inches of a unit that's got at least 3 models, if you try to shoot at the hero, you've got a -1 to hit him. You subtract 1 from your hit roll. But it does not apply if that target hero is also a monster, because it's very large. So, it's easier to hit, I'm assuming. So it's smart things like that, in my opinion. Oh, also, another big deal. There's a section right here. Measuring distances. They now say that you measure distances from base to base. It's no longer... When they originally launched Age of Sigmar, they were like, yeah, just from anywhere on the model to anywhere on the next model. That's how you measure them. And they're like, what about base to base? And they're like, no, you don't use bases anymore. And people got, frankly, a bit freaky-outy about it. In our local place, we were all just like, yeah, we're just going to measure from bases. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. But now they have changed that. And in the new rules, you're measuring from bases. Thank you. And so now, hopefully, the gnashing of teeth and the rending of garments will cease. So that will be nice. Also, in this book, or in this box, is another book. So this is the core book. The other one was the core rules. This is the core book. This is a big honkin' heavy, hardcover book that is, oh gosh, I don't know. We're not sure how many pages it is. Let's say it is 320-ish pages, roughly. Okay, so this is a big, thick honkin' book. It is full color all the way throughout, which you can't see from that angle. Lots and lots of artwork and cool stuff and fluff. It's mostly fluff. Easily the first 2/3 of the book. That much here is like fluff and like they talk about every last army in some fashion. And then there's lots of cool pictures and models to show you that neat stuff. So it's a lot of fluff, it's background, it's pictures of models, pictures of cool battles. It's a lot of stuff like that. There's the Seraphon, the Daughters of Cain, Sylvaneth, tons of stuff. Factions of the Mortal Realms was that section. And they're talking about the different realms. The Realm of Shadow, the Realm of Light, the Realm of Cottage Cheese, whatever. You got all these different things going on. Here's the Realm of Fire. Lots and lots and lots and lots of background and fluff, which a lot of people complained about in the first one because there wasn't much. Well, it's here in spades. But this back section, this is all battle plans, and you can see some battle plans right there. And open play, matched play, campaign play, narrative play, or whatever they call it. All that stuff is in this book. If you don't want the Stormcast Bros, and if you do not want the Ghost Dudes, if you just want this book, you can be able to buy this book separately. I think it's $60. I'm pretty sure. The box itself that I'm showing you here is $160 American. So basically, if you bought this book separately, that's $60. For the other $100, you're getting all those Ghost guys and all those other guys, the Storm Bros. So you've got a lot of stuff in the box. There are other things in the box still. So this is like a very simple start here, which kind of tells you, it's a very thin little thing, tells you that, how you should go about doing stuff and what it basically explains what's in the box. Like what are you doing? And again, they're looking at Age of Sigmar to hopefully bring new people in the hobby. So being able to just, if you just open up the box and you were like, well, I don't know, but when you open up the box and you find a thing that says start here, you go, oh, I'll start there. And that's just a smart thing to do. There are also, these are cards for all of the, what do you call them, the War Scrolls. So these are the War Scroll cards for all of the dudes in here. So we've got Lord Executioner, Guardian of Souls, Knight of Shrouds, the Chain Rasp Horde, the Glaive Wraith Stalkers, and Spirit Torment, and I think there's some other ones, or I think I took one downstairs. The guys that I built, these dudes over here, these are the Grimghast Reapers, and I built them because there was only 4 of them, and I knew I could get them done pretty quickly in time for the video on Friday. So this guy's got a big honkin' bell for ringing and for smiting. I'm going to say probably for thwacking people in the head, because no one wants to get hit in the head with a giant brass bell. This is the Battle of Glimsforge. I don't know, Glimsforge. And it is, I don't really know what this book is. I wonder if Glimsforge will be the next Shadespire, because it's talking about the free city of Glimsforge. And then this is all the information in here about stuff. Cool horse dude. The free city of Glimsforge. Storm and Spirit. And then it's kind of going through and explaining the units that are in the... It's like the fluff for the units that are in the box, kind of. And at the end, it looks like... Oh, and here is the what they call pitched battle profile. So these are the points for the units that are in the box. So you can already start playing matched play games, as they call them, points games, with those units in the box. What else? Let me see. We got more of the... These are more of the... This is a plastic bag, and there's more of those cards. And then in the bottom of the box, you lift up the part here. There's more bases, like for the big guys. And there's some dice, which are blue, clear. And there's a sample chapter of a Black Library book called Soul Wars, strangely enough. If I can get that out. So you get yourself a little sample chapter of Soul Wars by Josh Reynolds, so you could do that. And there's some dice, which look thusly. And a little clear ruler. So that's pretty much everything that comes into the box for, like I said, about 160 bucks American. I think it's a pretty good deal, honestly. I really do. I'm trying to get everything back in the box, or at least close to back in the box. Like, this book alone is spectacular because it's got a lot of... it's just got a lot of information in it if you want to get into the fluff stuff. And then having the regular core rules is really nice when you go to the shop and you don't need fluff, you just need to know what the rules are. Obviously, you can use the app. You can go through all that stuff. There's no reason not to. I use the app quite frequently. It's a pretty good app, honestly. But yeah, I think it's a very good setup. The models are great. They're push fit, so you don't need to use glue. Like I said in the Friday video, I use glue anyway, and there's a little bit of a trick to that. Which actually I'm going to make a video about soon. But yeah, that's the way that's going to work. So, anyway, yeah, that's our friends, the Soul War box, and the guys inside. Alex says, yes, GW art is on point. Yeah, I mean, when you go back, like I went and bought... 2 years ago to Adepticon, I bought the 30th anniversary reprint of the original Rogue Trader main book for 40K. And then last year I bought, well, this year technically, I bought the Realm of Chaos, Slaves to Darkness or whatever, which was kind of like the second book for 40K. When you go back and look at the artwork in those, there's definitely some nostalgia, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember that kind of stuff, and it's really cool, but in comparison, the art is nowhere near. I mean, it's so different now, in that the new stuff is amazing looking, and the old stuff is kind of, for lack of a better term, hokey. I still have affection for it, don't get me wrong, but, yeah. I'm astounded when people talk about how they don't, well, why do these war games, why do we have to have progress? What's the point? I don't like progress, I don't like change, I want things to stay the same. And then you go back and look at the pictures from 30 years ago that they were showing as look, these are the really cool models you can get. And you look at those models and you're like, whew, geez Louise. I mean, it's just not, yeah, I think that progress is a good thing because then we get cool looking stuff like these guys. You know, you would not have seen a model quite like this 30 years ago. I can tell you that right now. And by this, I mean blurry. Come on, focus, you jerk. Anyway, yeah, just the ability for it to look all ghostly and float. Looks very ghostly because it's out of focus. Anyway, you saw him in the Friday video, and if you didn't, you should go watch the Friday video because there's lots of nice close-up pictures of these guys, and the lighting is a lot better. So, yeah. JP Got Rocket says, unit cards, what madness is this? Yeah, I think it's just for something in the box. I mean, to be fair, you've been able to buy like War Scroll cards for other units. They've been selling, like they sold them for the Caradon Overlords. I think they sold them for the Wet Elves. But I just use the app because then I know that they're updated. Like, I don't know why you would ever buy, personally, I'm not sure why you would ever buy War Scroll cards, understanding that they will probably change the War Scrolls, or at least have the ability to do so at some point in the future. For me, I'm either going to use the app, or more likely, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go download the newest version from the website, and then I'll have a printout myself, but I'll know it's also the newest version. So, yeah. Yeah. Brand new Age of Sigmar player, I will start with Soul Wars. Any ideas for a well-played out, forgiving army? A well-played but forgiving army. If you're talking about strategy, I don't know because I'm not a strategery guy. But yeah, I don't know. I would try out the Ghost guys first. Well, I mean, or if you're really looking for like something, I don't want to say it's an easy button. A lot of people do say it's an easy button. I don't think that's true. But honestly, the Stormcast, they are. It's the same thing as within 40K. You know, Stormcast are sort of like a baseline. Like, they're kind of good at everything. They're not like, there's a lot of armies that are like only good at this but not good at that. Like, Orcs are really pretty good at, like, say, hand-to-hand, but are not maybe as good as shooting, whereas the Tau are way better at shooting and they're not very good at hand-to-hand. They're kind of in the middle, just like Space Marines are kind of in the middle. So, yeah, if you're into that, that may be the way to go with Stormcast. Johannes says the old Chaos books really had a Michael Moorcock feel. Yeah, I can get that. I see that. What else have we got? Are the Nighthaunt figures pretty fragile? I would say not particularly fragile. I mean, they look really fragile, but honestly, like here where this base part is, it's pretty thick. Like they flex a little bit. You know, if I push on them, they'll flex a little. You know, all parts will flex. But it's pretty good plastic. It's very strong plastic. I would not try to wedge these into, if you're like the type of person who carries foam cases around. I would not wedge those into foam that is like too small. Like, you can do that with Space Marines a little bit. You can kind of like, they'll fit in there. These guys, I would have to give them a good amount of space on a foam tray so that they've got a little bit of room to breathe, because trying to get them in and out, they will hang on stuff. To be fair, Chaos will do the same thing because they're constantly covered in spikes. So you have to be a little cognizant of that. Space Marines can take up literally, I think, the least amount of space in some situations in foam because they are not covered in spikes. They're pretty stocky, so you can kind of just squish them in there and then unsquish them by pulling them back out again. And there's usually, you might rub off a little bit of paint if you keep doing it time and time and time again, but you'll probably be okay. You know what I mean? These guys would benefit from either, like I said, larger cells in your foam case, or if you wanted to go with like magnets in the base and use, you know, one of those types of situations. Battle Foam has got a new system called Magna Rack, I think it's called, which is really nice, and it goes inside their standard cases, and it's just a series of like these shelves, but they're all like metal, and then you put little what do you call them, the little rare earth magnets in the, you know, glue them into the bases, and then you just go and set them on there, and then you can carry them that way. I wouldn't throw them down the stairs, you know, but you can easily carry them around, and they'll just stand there and not touch anything except for where the base touches the magnet or the metal part. And then when you need to get them out, you just kind of grab them and slide them out. Because if you try to lift, it's kind of hard because those magnets are very strong. So if you just sort of slide them off the metal, and then you're fine. Yeah, so that Magna Rack thing is actually really nice. Oh, Gaddis Gaming is here. Hey, how you doing, Lee? Stormcast have such epic-looking poses and heroic-feeling models. That's very true. I mean, they're very like each of them is like almost kind of like a statue. You know what I mean? Like definitely got that kind of like I'm doing my best, epic pose as I'm fighting, which I like. And that's the thing. Like I was talking about before, comparing like the poses for the Star Wars Legion, like trying to compare their poses and stuff like that to Games Workshop stuff, or even Malifaux. Like Malifaux has gone even crazier in that, Weird Games has made the Malifaux models, many of them, so dynamic. And it's almost impossible in some situations to get them into like a decent foam case. And that's cool. I think that Games Workshop has kind of split the difference between being sort of dull and sort of standing there, like a lot of the Star Wars Legion guys are, and then the opposite end, which is Malifaux. They're like standing on one big toe and doing some crazy move with a 3 swords somehow. That kind of stuff is cool, but I mean, there's a model I just made that up, but there is a model in the 10 Thunders for Malifaux where he's like it's kind of an Asian inspired faction, and he's got a bow staff that he's holding by one end, and he's jumping in the air and he's just hitting it on the ground, and there's like a explosion kind of happening where he hits it on the ground. Like he's just touching the base on where the where the bow staff touches the ground. Like his entire body is up off the base because he's like in mid jump as he's striking the ground. It's an amazing looking sculpt, but like if you think that these guys over here look a little fragile, that guy looks super fragile and is hard to transport. So at TMX, my friend Christopher Dick, he brought a whole bunch of his Bushido models, which are also very dynamic, lots and lots of like little bits and things hanging off them, and he had them all on that like battle foam Magna rack type stuff, because then that way they're just touching the base and everything else is they don't have to touch any place else, and it works out really well for very delicate kind of models like that. Paul Noxie says, yeah, Chaos Spikes catch on everything. Haha. No, it's true. I have poked myself pretty good and hard while building or gluing together Chaos models. What's worst, in my opinion, is when you glue yourself to a model that is also poking you. That's not fun at all. So I've done that more than once. Brandon says, sorry to be off topic, but does anyone know if there's any word on MegaCon Games and the discontinuation of Mercs? I haven't heard anything about that lately. I know that things were not going great over there, sadly, because I really, really, really love the artwork and the models for that game, and I think that the game system itself is pretty cool. I haven't heard anything, though. I have also not seen them anywhere recently. Like, they were, like in the past, I would see them at like ACD Games Day, which is a distributor conference. They'd be there talking to game stores. I didn't see them there this year. They weren't at Origins. They weren't at Adepticon, really, that I remember. I don't remember if they were at Gen Con last year when I was there either. So yeah, I don't. It's really a bummer because they're nice guys. Keith and Brian were the two main guys, and I love Keith's artwork so much. It's just really good. I love the sculpts, even the board gamey type of stuff they did, like Myth and things like that. I just like the skeletons were so cool and all that kind of stuff. I just really love their artwork, and but I have not heard. I mean, I think the website's probably still up, but I don't know that for sure. But yeah, it is a bummer because that was, I think, a really cool game. I don't know if things went south because it was like Kickstarter related or what. I mean, I know that they had a couple of big Kickstarters, and sometimes a big Kickstarter can be great, and sometimes you can miscalculate, and then you end up losing money on it. So I don't know, but it's a bummer because those guys are really nice. Lee Langston says, Test of Honor are great models. Yes, they are. I've got a set of them painted up. I am working with a friend of mine who's a commissioned painter. Not Sam, but a different guy. And, he's painted them up for me, and I just need to make some terrain, and I want to maybe do a bat wrap or something. Or at least show off the work, definitely, because it's really nice work. So, definitely. Alex Chavria says, I've heard that Ravnak's Gnashing Jaws, the new endless spell, is very painful. Is painful like it's painful to paint because it's very spiky? I can see that. It does look cool. It does look like that. That I didn't get. I didn't get a copy of that. So hopefully I will be picking one up on Saturday from my local shop this upcoming Saturday. I want to get that Malign Sorcery, I think it's called. I want to get that set, and I want to get what else is coming out on that I'm getting. Oh, and then the General's Handbook 2018. So yeah, definitely. Apollonios says, have you played any Wrath of Kings? If yes, what opinion? I have. I like Wrath of Kings. House Hadros, that's my jam, because they're basically kind of fishmen, sort of, so I'm on board. Cool system, D10s. I like the card mechanic. Like, it's not like a playing card mechanic, it's just like all your stats are on the card, and when people are rolling to damage you or whatever, like they roll a D10 and each damage track is different. Like some people, like it's harder to hit them, but once you do hit them, you penetrate a lot harder. Other ones, it's I think it's a really great mechanic, Wrath of Kings. I am bummed that it seems like Cool Mini or Not seem to be ignoring it or trying to phase it out. They seem to be putting many of their eggs into the Dark Age basket, which is a bummer because Dark Age, although I don't have the absolute, they do seem to update the rules every year on Dark Age, which is nice. And they also have a deal generally where, like, if you bring your old book to the convention, they'll give you the new book. Just be like, they'll just swap it out, which is also very nice. But to be fair, you can get all those rules for the most part online. And I'm not talking about, like, going online into some nefarious place and finding out, like, they just put them online. Like, the rules for Wrath of Kings, it's a great book because it's got all the fluff in it, and it's got a really, really super interesting story. Like, the fluff in the Wrath of Kings book is like a short novella, and it's really a cool read. It's a great story. But you can download the entire book from the Cool Mini or Not website. And it's not just like, oh, here's a download part with just the rules part. They've got all the fluff and all the cool stuff. Now, if you want a paper copy, they'll sell it to you. But if you just want to download it and play it, then they want to sell you models. You know what I mean? And I wish more companies did that kind of stuff, where they're like, look, we're going to make the rules. We will produce them and sell them to you if you want. But if you download it and want to start playing, buy our models, and then you can spend more money on models and less money on books. And I wish that more of them did that. It's one of the reasons why I like Age of Sigmar, because if you want to start playing Age of Sigmar, you can download the core rules for free and all the war scrolls and go to town. If you're like, well, now I need to know the points because I want to play, matched play or whatever. Okay, well, then you're going to need to pick up the General's Handbook. Or get it on the app. You can do that too. Like, again, you have to pay for it on the app to get the points, but you can do it. I was really hoping they were going to do that when 8th edition 40K came out. I was really hoping that there were going to be data slates or whatever that were going to be free to download, but they kept with the codex thing, and that was the business decision they made. I actually brought it up to, I was at a convention, and I brought it up to some of the guys in the booth or whatever, and they were like, well, that's the business decision that was made. And I'm like, well, I don't think it was the right one, because I think that if the less books you got to buy, the more models you can buy. But anyway, Wrath of Kings is cool, and I wish that they were pushing it harder, but they don't seem to be. And I don't really know anybody around here who plays it. That's also a problem. Anyone remember getting stabbed assembling old metal minis? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Metal minis, plastic minis, but I've just I've been stabbed a bunch I've stabbed myself, which just with X-Acto blades by accident. That's also fun, too. My friends are always like, do you always cut towards your face? I'm like, well, I do. It seems to be the case, yeah. So, hey, Christopher Dick is here. Hey, Adam and Matt. I was just talking about you, Christopher. I was talking about your Bushido models and the Magna Rack thing to keep them all, so just the bases are touching and they're not in foam, and that keeps them nice and protected, and how that's a cool thing. Because some people were asking about how to store things like this, where there's lots of little spiky bits and the hangy-offy parts, and how are you going to put that in foam? And I think you either need basically a big foam area to do it. Why will this not focus? Or you need to use the magnets and all that kind of stuff, like you were doing with your Bushido guys. Sean Ryder says, just got into miniatures with Star Wars Legion. What would be a good next step game, preferably affordable? Well, it depends kind of on... I honestly believe it depends on what you like. If you want to get into something that's different than Star Wars Legion, you want to get into something that's maybe more fantasy-based, I'd tell you to look into Age of Sigmar. You could get... if you liked either the Ghost guys here or the Storm Bros, you could buy the box and split it with a friend. Or you could buy a Start Collecting box. Those are like $85, and they've got like a decent kind of small starter army. Like, generally around here, the guys that I play Age of Sigmar with, we generally play only 1,000-point lists. So it's not a ton of models. That's one possibility. You could also, there's a lot of other games you could get into that are small skirmish. Malifaux is a good small skirmish game. Generally, you play with a crew, and a crew is maybe 6, 7, 8 guys. And so, like, a crew box is generally $45 to $50. So, and then the book, I think they have the rules for free online, but if you want the book, I think it's $40. Yeah, there's a lot of different things like that. I would even tell you to look into Shadespire. Yeah, Shadespire is not exactly, it's kind of a straddles the fence between board game and miniatures game, but it's got cool little miniatures and there's not too many of them. It's pretty inexpensive. Like the starter box that has 2 forces in it so you and a friend can play, it's like $60. And if you want to buy extra, I don't have a box around here, but if you wanted to buy extra boxes of add-on war bands, they're usually, I think they're $30. So those would be my opinions. Or Gaslands is also very good if you like cars and cars shooting at each other and going fast and flipping over and ramming into each other. Gaslands from Osprey is like $20 for the book, and then you just buy Matchbox cars and then glue stuff to them and paint them up and stuff. And so you can get Matchbox cars for like $1 at the grocery store. So yeah, those are good options, I think. Joshua Hatch says, I finally got into Shadespire, really enjoying that. Currently using Reavers as my friend's Skaven and another buddy's Fire Slayers. Yeah, that makes sense. I can see that. It is a good game. I'm actually going to be playing it this afternoon. Sterling Archer. Wow, I did not. I just started watching. I just started following you. Do you have any recommendations for store a lot of paints? Oh, how to store a lot of paints. I hate digging through drawers and boxes. The way that I see people do it who are much more organized than I am is they go onto like Amazon.com and they get clear acrylic shelves designed for nail polish. Like if you have a nail salon, you go on Amazon and you buy these clear plastic shelves that attach to the wall that have tiny little shelves with a lip, so all your bottles of nail polish, you can put them all in there so that when people come in to get the nails did, you can find the right color of blue or whatever real quickly. And so there's a lot of people that are buying those on Amazon and having them in their hobby space and putting all their paints in them. And there's the kind that hang on the wall, there's the tiered kind that kind of sit on your desk. I would look into those because the fact that they're clear plastic makes it very easy to kind of see like everything, and also they're not very expensive. So I would look into that. That's a good way. Or what I've done in the past too is like go to like Walmart or whatever and get not a spice rack per se, but sometimes you'll see like little tiered shelves that you would put in your cupboard so that like if it's up high, you can see the stuff in the back, and so there's like it kind of goes like it's a little shelf made out of bamboo are the ones that I've got, and it kind of goes like this and then up and then like this and up and like this, and then you can kind of keep your paints tiered like that on your desk. Those are good ways to kind of do it because having them in little drawers and having to dig through little drawers to try to find your paints is sort of a pain. So it totally makes sense. Level 6 says, does anyone play Rune Wars? I don't think so, as it turns out. Sadly. That was... Rune Wars was the game kind of between X-Wing and Star Wars Legion that Fantasy Flight did. They released it, not this year, but 2017? I think they released it 2017, like right around the time, just after Adepticon. But if you came to Adepticon and got a swag bag, they gave you a copy of it for free. And it was like an $80 or $100 game box. And, but you had to put them together and paint them, which the X-Wing people went, oh. Because the X-Wing people were like, oh, a cool new game? Neat. Oh, I have to paint them and build them. Oh, well, I'm not interested in that. And other people were like, I was not interested, frankly, because it was rank and flank. Meaning the models, you don't keep the models separate and move them around. You move them in like this little tray. They kind of attach to each other, and then you move them together as a unit in a line. I didn't like that, and I kind of didn't like just the regular game system. The models were kind of cool, especially the undead ones. I liked the skeletons a lot, but I did not like the rest of it. So at least for me, it never really fired, and I didn't really see anybody around our area doing it. I know some places did, and they added more stuff to it, but I feel like they're going to turn it off. So, eventually. Dr. V says to David Jones, there's a new Skirmish 40K system coming out. I would wait for that. That's also not a bad idea. There's going to be actually several. There's going to be Kill Team, which is going to be different from the old Kill Teams. The old Kill Teams were books that you added on to the current version of 40K. So like in 7th edition, they came out with Kill Team, which was basically like you play with normal 40K, 7th edition, but these are special rules and different ways to kind of do it so that you could play with much smaller groups. So you could play with like 5 or 6 models instead of like a whole army. And they had special abilities and this and that and the other thing. It seems as if the new Kill Team is now a completely separate game. They said at Adepticon that it is not using the 8th edition 40K rules, which is a little surprising to me, but that's what they said they're doing. So that's a thing. And then the other thing that's very interesting to me is that they're going to be doing what's the other one? Rogue Trader. So Rogue Trader is another one coming out towards the end of 2018 that is another skirmish type game. It looks like it takes place on a ship, so it's going to have tiles kind of like Necromunda does, but it's not going to be like, I don't believe it's going to be big squares like, say, Space Hulk does, where you're moving like 1 square, 2 square, 3 square. It's just basically tiles, and you're going to have a tape measure and move where you need to move because you're on a ship. So yeah, both of those are coming out, and then mixing that in also with Necromunda and all that, it's going to be very interesting to see how that's going to work out down the road. So yeah, there'll be a lot of things for you to choose from by the end of the year, certainly. Christopher Dick says, starting a Frostgrave campaign this afternoon with some Illinois friends. That's another good game. If you're looking to get into something like you've been playing and you want to get into something that's, especially if you want to play something and you don't want to have to use any specific models, Frostgrave would work well. Although the person who mentioned that they wanted to use lizard men, there's not really any lizard people in Frostgrave. Whereas Song of Blades and Heroes, which is the game that I suggested, does have lizard people and every other last thing under the sun to choose from, so you could do that too. Let me see here. Table War has a good system for upright magnet storage and transport. Yeah, oh, Blake, hey, how you doing? Yeah, it's the same kind of thing to some degree, where it's like it's a hard side case, and then there's little drawers that have metal stuff in them, and then you put the magnets in and then you go that direction. Like Table War does that. Like I said, Battle Foam does it, but they're designed to work in their normal cases. It's basically like an insert you drop into their normal cases. The upside to that, in my mind, is that if sometimes you're using foam in that case and sometimes switching to the Magna Rack, you don't have to, you know what I mean? You can use that same case for both, which is sort of cool. But I've also seen people who will just like magnetize their models and buy a metal like toolbox and then just stick the models all along the inside of the toolbox. I mean, that'll work, you know. So yeah, there's a lot of different options. What else have we got going on here? JP Got Rocket says they should have stuck with battle lore and getting more expansions of that instead of the mass battle fantasy. Yeah, I heard a lot of people who really liked battle lore. And that was, again, that was from Fantasy Flight, wasn't it? Yeah. It was like a fantasy version of... I got something in my eye this morning. It's like a fantasy version of... Memoir 44, kind of. So that was kind of cool. Paul Noxie says, Adam, played any more Space Hulk Deathwing on PS4? There's an update talk of earning the renown currency easier. I haven't. I mean, I've been, like I said, on the road a lot, so I did not do that. I was watching some coverage on and off from E3 about the new Cyberpunk 2077 game from CD Projekt Red. Now, I never played any of the Witcher games, but I know they were very highly regarded. I was kind of a fan of Cyberpunk 2020, the actual pen and paper RPG game from R. Talzorian back in the day. So when they said they were making a game from that, and that the writer of the RPG, the tabletop RPG, was part of the crew that was working on it, I was like, okay, you got my attention. So E3 this year, they released some more stuff about it, and there was a gameplay demo that journalists could see but couldn't film, so journalists were talking about what they saw and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, all right, well, so it kind of piqued my interest. And then in one of the, I don't know, something I was listening to, they were talking about Deus Ex, Humans Divided or Mankind Divided or whatever, which is the most recent Deus Ex game. And they were talking about how it had a little bit of that vibe, but there was some this, that, and other thing. And I was just like, I never played that game. I I played the original Deus Ex back in the 90s, and I was like, I never played any of the more recent ones. I should get that. So I went online and looked, and it was $30 to download it from the PlayStation Store. And I'm like, I bet you I could get it for cheaper. And I went on to Amazon and found out you get it for $12 on disc. And so I did and installed it, and it downloaded, 14 or 18 gigabytes of patches. And then eventually I got to play it. And I played it for about an hour, and I think I'm going to uninstall it because I do not like it. It's bad. I'm not a fan. I'm not saying it's objectively bad. I don't believe in that in some situations, especially not for games and art. But man, like, I came around the corner and there was like a bad guy, like a Russian dude, like a Russian thug, and he was in a tracksuit. He was not augmented with cyber shenanigans. He wasn't wearing body armor. He was in a bookstore, messing up at the bookstore, he and all of his pals, and I had to take him out. And I came around the corner, and I had a 10mm pistol because it was the only thing I had ammo for. Every gun you pick up in that game has got 3 bullets in it, it seems like. So I've got this pistol, 10mm pistol. I'm crouching. I sneak around the corner. He comes and he sees me. I shoot him twice in the thigh and once in the crotch. He does not flinch and then just kills me with a shotgun. And I'm like, come on, man. It's like, what year is it? Like 2018? The fact that he did not even do anything, he didn't or anything. There was not even a flinch. He just took all 3 of those shots and then killed me. And I was like, and that was a long line of leading up to it. Why can't I do this? And where, I snuck up into an apartment because I was trying to get to this place and I couldn't go the straight in way and I couldn't go the back way. So I'm like, okay, there's a ladder. I'll follow up here. Oh, there's an apartment. That's cool. I break in the apartment and they've got a computer. I look through their stuff in their computer. I take things out of the drawers and I would go look around in their bathroom. I could have taken a shower in their bathroom, literally I could have, but I could not open the door out into the rest of the apartment or the rest of the into the hallway. I couldn't. That was not a way to get to where I needed to go. It was just a place that there was some stuff I could look around, and I was like, just a lot of problems. Not my favorite game. Let's just say that. So $12, kind of thrown down the toilet. It's one of the big reasons why I don't generally like video games as much anymore these days. So anyway, that was a little bit of a rant. I apologize. What else have we got? Grimlock Steve says, should I eat my Tau minis? No. I'm not going to say it depends. I'm going to say no. It's a bad idea. Don't do it. The And Bomb says, sitting here and contemplating to buy or not to buy the AOS 2.0 starter box. I like the feel of both armies. 2 Plus Tough says, do it. So 2 Plus Tough is saying it. It depends. Again, you should definitely not eat your Tau minis, but if you want to get the starter box, the Soul Wars box, that depends. If you like the feel of the armies, if you like the look of the armies, if you think you'd have a lot of fun time working on them, then I would go for it, because like I said, it's a pretty good deal. You get that, if you like fluff, the thick book has got tons of fluff, plus all the other stuff, lots of extra battle plans and all that kind of jazz. I think it's a good box. I think it's just as good of a box, if not maybe a touch better, than the last one, the last starter they did, the first starter they did 2 years ago that had Khorne, Bloodbound or whatever, and Stormcast in it. That was also a very good starter. You got lots of cool stuff, lots of great models, plus you got all the things you need. It was a good game. So there's that. Daniel Nixon agrees with me. Deus Ex was not great. Well, the last one at least. Yeah, it looked amazing, but it did not play very well. I didn't like it. JP Rockets is saying Memoir 44 is based on Command and Colors, which is by Richard Borg. His engine drives a lot of games like that, Battlecry and more, lots of games that need a command and control mechanic to use it. So I was not wrong. I knew that Battle Lore, or I was pretty sure that Battle Lore and Battlecry and all that kind of stuff were based off of that, I think. I think I got that right. Let me see here. Daniel Nixon also says, yeah, the no flinch thing was definitely a problem in Deus Ex. Let me see here. Talking a lot about Deus Ex. Got stuck as the part with a pistol in a building full of guys can't survive. Went on to something else. Yeah, I just didn't enjoy it. Peter McGill says, greetings from Northern Ireland. First time I've caught you live. Praise the Emperor. Well, there you go. See, glad to have you here. I've got about another half hour or so, and then it's time for lunch at the in-laws, which I have not seen them in a month because I've been traveling pretty much the entire time, and so every weekend I've been gone. So yeah. What else we got? Adam, I'm a sucker for that fluffy fluffiness, and the models tickle me in good ways. That kind of answers your question then at that point. If you like the fluff and you like the models, then the box is probably a good deal if you got the $160. I mean, that's the way to go. So yeah, like I said, it's a great start. I am assuming that if you want to some people have said online, and I haven't looked into this yet directly because I don't have the Night Haunt book, but some people have been like, yeah, but in that starter box they give you like these amount of guys, and like they say that you can't have that. You know, it's one of those deals where like they gave you 4 guys, but you're supposed to have 10 or something like that. I've noticed that some things have changed in here where they tell you now you can have any number of guys. Like they don't say, oh, a unit of these guys is 5. They're now saying, oh, you can have... Let me find the War Scrolls here, so I can hopefully prove my point and not be wrong. But I might have dreamt it. Here we go. Yeah, so Glaive Wraith Stalkers, which are the guys that have the horse head skulls, which are pretty cool. A unit of Glaive Wraith Stalkers has any number of models. Each Glaive Wraith Stalker attacks with a 2-handed Hunter's Glaive. The Chain Rasp Horde. A Chain Rasp Horde is any number of models. So it's different than it used to be, where it was like you needed to have at least this many and go up to that many. And I think we may see that difference in the... maybe we'll see that difference in the General's Handbook. I don't know. I don't have a copy of it yet. But... yeah, I know some people have complained. People always complain. You could give them a shoebox full of 20s, $20 bills, and they would complain about the color of the shoebox. But I think it's going to be, if you were like, well, I need to get this perfectly optimized for my tournament list, I'm sure you'll be able to buy... I'm sure people will buy this box because they just want the Stormcast or they just want the Night Haunt, and then they'll take the other stuff and parcel it out onto eBay. Because I know when I was building my Stormcast army, well, purchasing my Stormcast army, I haven't built them yet, but I was like building the list in my head, and I was purchasing what I needed beyond the original starter box. I went onto eBay and just bought more of those flying guys. You know, like I just bought another unit of 3 of them. Yeah, but if you're super duper into, perfectly optimized tournament lists, then I don't know. I guess you'll have to wait until they come out with the real boxes for everything, and then maybe buy those, or I don't know. I'm not sure. I am not the guy, as it turns out, for that kind of thing. George asks, any word on when Games Workshop is going to update the online army builder to 2.0? That's a good question. I would hope probably by next week. I mean, you would think that they would probably try to do that by next week. I don't know. I know that I've not... I mean, the online army builder is okay. It's not bad for Age of Sigmar. They also then made a version for 40k, but it's only power levels, which is a little weird. I don't know why there's not a 40k app yet. That still drives me a little bit nuts that there's not a 40k app yet. I don't know exactly what they're waiting for. I wish they would get it out. You know what I mean? Like the app for Age of Sigmar is really quite nice, and I work in apps for a living, and I know that it shouldn't take this long to get the 40k one out, but I don't know. Maybe they've got other plans or whatever the deal is. So yeah, I don't know. Mobile Crusader says, I love putting you on as background noise, Uncle Adam. Your voice is so soothing and your opinions are good. Well, I appreciate that on both counts. Let me see here. What else have we got? In the General's Handbook, they say the limits of the units. The War Scrolls almost always, even the old ones, said any number of models. Well, yeah, like in the what do you call them? Yeah, in the General's Handbook, they'll be like, okay, you need to have this to this. But yeah, I still haven't seen it yet, so I don't know. Like these Reapers, the Grimghast Reapers, they give you 4. Well, if it says in the General's Handbook you need to have 5, well then that's weird that they would only give you 4. But also kind of not unheard of. They did that in the starter box the last time, where they gave you 3 of something, Liberators maybe, and like they're supposed to be in a unit of 5 to 10. So basically what you did then, if you really wanted to go down that road and play match play, then what a lot of people just did is they bought the starter box or the start collecting box, because the start collecting box had like 2 guys in it or something like that, where basically all of a sudden it made it a unit of 5. So it worked out fine. But yeah, that kind of information is, you're right, generally in the General's Handbook. Zebulon. Hey, Zebulon. Zebulon was at TMX. Are we getting per model points? That I don't know yet. I still haven't seen. I think other people. Someone has probably had the. I think someone else received the General's Handbook. Like, I have a tendency to get sent stuff that's a little bit more hobby related, because other channels are a lot more into tournament lists and to and really analyzing the rules, and I'm not particularly. So I'm almost positive somebody else out there, whether it was Mini Wargaming or whether it was maybe Ash from Guerrilla Miniature Games or somebody else, got, I think, the General's Handbook. I think so. Maybe they've got the better lowdown on that, but that's not something I received. So. J.E. Granberg says, I've noticed that the older that I get, the more interested in finding the best in my hobbies. The best games, books, beers, hiking spots. Anyone else notice their hobbies narrow down to fewer things? I've noticed that my hobbies have narrowed down to fewer things. I don't know. I mean, the best is a different term. Like, for me, the best is I want to know, like, what makes me happiest. Like I said, I don't know. Like with movies, my tastes have gotten slightly broader. Like, I don't get so angry at certain movies anymore. I'm just like, it's fine. I'm not like, well, I'll only watch really, really super good movies, or I get really angry when a movie doesn't go the way I think it should have. I watch it and I'm like, it's fine. And, for me, a movie gets relatively high praise if I decide to buy the Blu-ray, because I'm like, well, I'll watch that again later on. But if it's another movie I went to, I mean, there are movies that are terrible that I've just stopped. There's a movie that's on Netflix right now that's got John Cusack in it called Singularity, and it's sci-fi-ish. And Netflix kept telling me that it had a 98% of what I kind of like, and I should definitely totes watch it. And so I downloaded it onto my iPad to take it on the plane, and I watched it for about half an hour or so, and then I was like, well, this is terrible. This is, like, I would rather just stare at the people around me here in the airplane than actually keep watching this movie. It was so bad. I felt bad for everybody in it, specifically for John Cusack, so don't watch that movie. It's like not even like a good bad movie, like where sometimes like a MST3K bad movie. It's just bad. There was another one I downloaded too, which was called 2307, or it was something like. Basically, it was a post-apocalyptic, like the Earth froze over, and the entire movie took place in Arizona, which was still a frozen hellscape. Like, everything was frozen, and there was not very many people left on Earth, and we were all living underground, and this, that, the other thing. And that was a bad movie too, but it was enjoyable from a bad movie standpoint. Singularity was just bad, really bad. Like, I was unhappy for the people who were in it and angry at the people who made it. You know what I mean? Like, it was just, ugh. That does not happen to me. But I didn't watch the entire thing and then like write a Twitter post about it. I just was like, meh, and then I stopped. This is literally the most that I've said about it since I've watched it. I just stopped watching it and then went on and did other things. So yeah, that's the way that works. So let me see here. Okay. Oathstone says, I waste so much time on the Age of Sigmar app. See, that's the trick. And that's what I kind of said to the guys at GW back when they released 8th edition. I'm like, I know that I have bought Age of Sigmar models because I've been like literally like sitting on the toilet looking through them, like, oh, those models are kind of cool. What are the rules for it? Oh, okay, they can do that and that. Well, I could see that being synergistic with my such and such or whatever, in my mind. And then I end up potentially buying those models. But if I have to go out and buy the $50 codex to figure out what the rules are for these Blood Angel dudes or whatever, then I'm a little bit less likely to kind of shop around. You know what I mean? Like, the ability to go and look at what the models can do for free really allows you to maybe be more interested in shopping around and maybe adding more things to your army, as opposed to, well, I have to go buy this book to find it out. And I think that's one of the big benefits to Age of Sigmar, because you can do that. You can kind of like pick and choose and look at things before having to actually pull the trigger, whereas with 40K, you're not going to know anything about whatever army unless you buy the codex first. You know what they look like. That's cool, but you don't know anything about the rules or how they work or anything along those lines unless you go buy the book. And now you got the book, and you're like, well, maybe I don't like this army now, but I got the books, and you throw it on eBay or whatever, and then there's fees, and then, I don't know. I went down a weird way there. What else have we got here? Lee Langston says that Singularity was horrid. Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one who saw that. Adam, the main thing that stopped me from getting into Age of Sigmar is the lore. What do you think of it? Is it similar quality to 40K? I think it's because it's a lot newer to us that we don't maybe see it as good a quality. I have not read through this big hardcover yet, so I'm interested in doing that. I will tell you that as far as 40K lore, I'm interested a lot more in, like, I just bought the bought is a strong word. I'm an Audible member or whatever. Audible is the audiobook people, and GW is starting to put a lot of the audiobooks finally on Audible, and so I got the Eisenhorn, the 3 different Eisenhorn books, like Malleus and Xenos and whatever the other one is, Heretic, whatever. So the stuff that I like from like Black Library, if you're getting into 40K lore, honestly, it's the Eisenhorn trilogy or whatever, the big thick Eisenhorn stuff, and the Ravnor. So that's just pretty much, like, I'm super interested in the Inquisition stuff, and I think that's really cool, and those books are written really super well. Really like the author. That's great. I've read, I read the big Space Wolves omnibus. That was kind of cool. I read the Space Marines one. That was fine. I've read a bunch of the earlier Horus Heresy. I'm not a super lore guy, but I do like a lot of that stuff. I have not read any of the Black Library books based off of Age of Sigmar, but there's not been a bunch of them yet because it just started like 2 years ago. So there's that. It takes time to write that stuff. I don't know that the lores are comparable, but I do know that now that there's like 2/3 of this hardcover book, Gesundheit, 2/3 of this hardcover book now is basically like lore and background and stuff like that. It's not a specific like story, like it's not a novel, but it is a lot of fluff and background about all the different forces and things like that in Age of Sigmar. And so it's kind of interesting that way. And a lot talking about the different realms and all that stuff. So I think if you're interested in that kind of stuff, that book is going to be a good deal because you'll be able to find out a lot of stuff. And from what I understand, they're also, well, obviously there's a teaser chapter or whatever for Soul Wars because it's starting to talk about the whole Nagash thing and all that stuff. So definitely. Mr. Spider, don't you find it funny that in most sci-fi films, the last place alive or the place where the aliens/meteor lands is always somewhere in the United States? Well, in United States movies, yes, but I've seen plenty of Australian movies too about like zombie apocalypses and stuff like that, and they take place, in Australia. Generally, it depends on like if you're an American, you're going to be a little bit harder pressed to write a story about what happened when the aliens landed in Nigeria because you don't know Nigeria that well. You know what I mean? It's the same deal with District 9. The aliens came in District 9 and they landed in South Africa because Neil Blomkamp was South African. So you kind of they tell you to write what you know. It's sort of the same thing. Yeah, from what I understand, that's the case, and it kind of makes sense. George says, did anyone hear about Privateer Press's new game Riot Quest? I saw the announcement yesterday, but it gave me no idea what it's about. Yeah, I got that email too, and I was like, wait, what? What's Riot Quest? I still don't know. So, no, I don't have any of that information. Rabbit Burner says a quality B movie, Iron Sky, Nazis on the Moon, Space Zeppelins. Yeah, Iron Sky is hysterical. That's a fun movie, but they're also doing it. It's got a bit of a tongue-in-cheek sort of thing going on. Like, they're not taking it super seriously. Singularity was taking itself incredibly seriously, and that was weird. Yeah, so. What else? Let's see, talking about Age of Sigmar some more. Hello from the Netherlands. Thanks for your content over the years. Absolutely, Raven. Not a problem. 40K definitely sells way more, but Age of Sigmar sells better as a percentage of total salsa now. Salsa? I think that you meant to say sales. I think that there was a... Yes, so further down it says sales, not salsa. That's an autocorrect. What if Games Workshop made salsa, though? It would have chunks of plastic in it, I'll tell you that right now, which is probably not a good idea. VJ Morph says, I can confirm we have many zombie apocalypses here in Australia. Well, yeah, I mean, again, the people who made The Walking Dead, like, that was down in Georgia, Atlanta area, right? And I'm pretty sure that the original writers are probably kind of from that area. Mad Max, exactly, is all about Australia. Absolutely. So, yeah. How big is that purple sun in the malign sorcery contents? I don't know. It's a good size. I'll bet you it's probably, about that big. I don't know. That doesn't really help you out. I don't know, 3.5, maybe 4 inches, I think. I'm guessing. Again, I don't have that box yet. I'm hoping to get it on Saturday. But, yeah, I don't know about that. That model, like, there's a couple of models in that. The malign sorcery box is a bunch of magical effects. They're spells that you fire off, and it's almost like you're summoning a spell, and then they show you the spell effect, and then it can, like, cruise around the board and chase people around and do stuff and whatever and get into fights and then eventually croak, I assume, or whatever. But they have these different spell effects that are actual models, and some of them are amazing looking. Some of them look like a ping pong ball with pipe cleaners on it, a little bit. Some of them are cool, but some of them I was like, eh. But I really want to look through that box and check it out, because I think it's an interesting new thing to make the magic even more interesting in that game, which I think Age of Sigmar definitely needed. So, but they showed off the Purple Sun thing back during Adepticon, maybe sooner than that. And it's just like it's kind of got like a skull face on it, like on a big purple ball, and then it's spiky like a puffer fish, and it's purple. And I think it's the biggest of the effects that come in that box, but it's a little wacky. So, Joe asks, wouldn't all the wildlife in Australia kill all the zombies? Well, I mean, like the drop bears. Unless the drop bears become zombies, then that's really bad. I'm not sure. Death by Donut says the Purple Sun is like Dreadnought sized. Oh, that's a good size. That's pretty big. Almost baseball size, some people say. Tennis ballish. Yeah, that would be weird. Let me see here. Some people are saying racquetball size. We're getting very specific on our ball sizes here. Mr. Spider, there's a lot of support for Age of Sigmar now. Actually, Josh Reynolds is on the TGA forums. Josh Reynolds wrote the Soul Wars book. Those U.S. mainstream comedians work on Kimmel. Started a podcast this week, Legends of the Painty Men. Huh, interesting. It's interesting to me. The majority of the podcasts that I follow because they're funny. Like, one of my favorite podcasts out there is Last Podcast on the Left, and they're talking about horrible things. They're talking about, well, not all horrible things. They're talking about serial killers a lot and things like that, but they also talk about, like, Bigfoot and aliens and other junk like that. But all three of them are comedians, and so that makes it a lot funnier, and I enjoy it a lot more. If they were, like, super serious about it, I would probably not be nearly as interested. But because they're comedians, they can kind of, like, spoonful of sugar sort of a situation, like, that kind of helps, especially for all the talk of, like, the serial killers and things like that. Like, there was just a 5-part series they did on the Jonestown Massacre recently, which was incredibly well, like, they don't make jokes about the victims ever. They don't do any kind of stuff like that. They are very good about explaining what happened. They do tons of research. The fact that it was a 5-part episode, it was probably over 5 hours total, if not 6, of information. And it was very interesting to kind of see how that whole thing progressed and everything. But I think that sometimes some of the comic relief can help you get through that stuff. Another one that I'm a big fan of, which is about mainly American history, is called The Dollop. And that's 2 comedians talking about strange things in American history. And so that's also very interesting. I know that there's also a lot of good... people talk a lot about hardcore history and how that's a really good show, and I keep meaning to start catching that, but I haven't yet. So anyway, the fact that you're going to get some comedians who are doing a show now about painting miniatures, a podcast about it, I think is interesting. Dr. V says that Purple Sun thing is very close to Purple Sun sized. That's, I think, very accurate. Legends of the Painty Men, evidently, is the name of that podcast about painting. So yeah, I'll have to check that out, definitely. All right. So yeah, to kind of wrap up the whole thing here with the box, the Soul Wars, you get this sweet piece of whatever this is, the bubble wrap. But beyond that, you get a whole bunch of other great models. Again, I really like. I mean, the Night Haunts are amazing. As soon as they started showing those off and announcing them and saying, "Hey, check out these new models are going to be coming out soon," I was like, "Man, I hope those are in the starter box." And luckily, they were. But also, just one of my favorite models they've ever made is the Cairn Wraith, which if you've ever gone back and watched the video I did, which was one of my most popular videos about the secrets of liquid green stuff, I used that technique first on that Cairn Wraith. Now, the Cairn Wraith model is different because he's not, like, he's just floating along and his cloak is just dragging on the ground, and that's what's, like, touching the ground. These guys, whoops, it's like there's ghost energy or whatever, if I can get this to ever focus. There's like ghost energy coming out of the ground, and then it's turning into them, which is why some people are painting them completely all that bright green or bright blue to make them just like a ghostly thing. But here you can see like there's a gravestone there, and the ghost energy's floating up from the ground and turning into the ghost. So that's very different with these guys than the Cairn Wraith. But I wanted to paint these guys much like the Cairn Wraith, and I also wanted to make sure to texture them. So you can see here, you can see the texture I put on the back. It's just, go back and watch that video if you want to find out how to do it. It's called The Secrets of Liquid Green Stuff. And it's just basically about, because these guys are so smooth, because they're plastic, you know, I just feel like they should have some texture to them because they're hanging around in a graveyard. They're floating around doing ghost stuff. And if they're that smooth, to my mind, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So that's why I textured those guys. And I will probably texture all the Night Haunts in this box once I get them all done, and use them in that way. So I like that technique a lot. I think it works out well. It makes them look a lot different than everybody else's, yeah, that's one of the reasons I was super jazzed with these guys. And I already had a Death Army started. Like, I've got 1,000 points of chaos. I've probably got another 500 points sitting on my painting table, ready to go. Some of it primed, some of it not. And a lot of it's Skaven, like the Plague Claw Catapult. That's already primed and ready to go on my table, to add to my chaos. But then my next army that I started to build and paint was Death, but it was mostly skeleton-based. And again, like I said, I'm a soup player. I have no problem mixing skeletons and ghosts. They're all Death, so for me, it's fine. Like, I don't generally ever go super, faction pure. I've got a friend who goes straight Sylvaneth because he wanted to go that way, and he just liked the tree people, and he went with it that way. So he gets extra added benefits, and he gets, if you're a Death player, you get benefits, whereas everybody else gets benefits. But yeah, so he gets these added benefits and things that are in the Battle Tome and whatever. But I'm just generally like, well, I just want to mix rat people and goat people, not together. I mean, in the same army. I want to mix them together, and have that ability along with like the cool Blight Kings. All the cool. I generally like the Nurgle stuff, but not Nurglings. Like, I don't like the comic relief Nurgle stuff with little Nurglings, little fat guys running around like poking at each other and farting. I'm not into that. But like the Blight Kings are amazing models, and all the other stuff that's related to that. The Lord of or the Chaos, basically the Nurgle Chaos Lord. I forget what they call him now. The Lord of Blight, maybe. They've got a bunch of different really cool models in that set that I like. The straight up Nurgle demons I'm not as much into, and the Nurglings I'm not into, but being able to mix all that stuff together is really cool to me. So being able to take these ghost dudes and add them to my skeleton bros, I have no problem doing that, and I'm looking forward to it. And since I've already got a bunch of skeletons already ready to go, a bunch of them painted, a bunch of them built, and ready to be textured and based, or the base texture, and then go from there. All that's coming. So yeah, you'll be seeing more Death over here as far as Age of Sigmar is concerned very soon. Let me see here. Rabbit Burner says, thought of texturing my Death Guard with liquid green stuff. I did that. I built it's not done painting yet, but it's about half painted. I did a Hellbrute. I bought the Hellbrute kit, and I wanted it to be Death Guard, so I textured all the armor plates to make it look kind of bumpy and almost rusty, and that turned out pretty well. So yeah, I use liquid green stuff for that same thing. I'll probably post pictures of it when it's done. Like I said, it's about half done right now. That will be that, and another Dreadnought and a unit of Obliterators is what will take my 1,500 point Chaos Marine army to 2,000 points. And they're nearly done. Let me see here. My favorite hobby is doing ghost stuff. Well, there you go. See, it's not too bad. JP got rockets. What if the Night Haunts would have gotten away with it too if it hadn't been for those meddling kids and their dog? That's very true. A lot of them, like I do like how, and I've said it in the video, that they remind me a little bit of like Scooby-Doo villains, just a little bit. I mean, they're supposed to be scarier than that, but there were some sort of scary Scooby-Doo villain type dudes. But yeah, it's the same type of deal a little bit. Nick says, your videos have helped me up my hobby so much in the year that I've been doing this. Keep it up. Well, yeah, you keep it up too, man. Good luck. I'm glad that it helps. Trev says, I'm just starting and want to aim towards a 2,000 point army, or 2,000 point death army. I think I'm going to start with the Soul Wars set and add skeletons later. Yeah, I mean, either skeletons or zombies, I mean, it depends on what you like. I kind of like the skeleton models more than zombies, and I also came across a guy who was selling a whole bunch of skeletons that were already built. I built a bunch myself earlier on, and then I bought a whole bunch. So they were built but not painted. So they were built, and they were on square bases too. So I had to de-glue them from the square bases, put them on round bases, texture those bases, and then prime and paint. And it's worked out pretty well. I gotta say, honestly, just the ability to buy the skeletons, even though I had to take their bases off and put new bases on, the fact that they were already built did help a lot, because those old skeleton models from Games Workshop were a little fiddly. So this was nice to be able to kind of get those done and get beyond them. So yeah. Flo asks, what's your favorite conflict mini? Conflict 47. That's a good question. What's my favorite conflict? I mean, that Sherman tank is kind of cool looking, I think. I mean, I just like Sherman tanks in general anyway. Sherman, the M4A1, the original with the cast hull, the rounded hull, as opposed to the M4A3 and above, where they had the rectangular welded hull. The cast hull is like my favorite. It's when I think of a tank, I think of an M4A1. Now, this is a M4, M5. I think it's M4A9, which never actually existed because we didn't have Tesla cannons in 1947. But it's still, the turret for it looks really cool. I should have brought it upstairs. Well, anyway, because I got everything built last night except for the turret. The model itself is plastic, but the turret is resin. Now, if you were building the normal Conflict 40, if you were building the normal bolt action, normal Sherman, the entire thing is plastic, including the turret. But so they give you the sprues for that. And you still have the turret. So if I want to start playing bolt action on the road, I could just build the turret, and then I could just swap turrets, and it works fine. But in this situation, the turret for the plasma, or not plasma, it looks kind of like a plasma gun, but it's a Tesla cannon. A lot of people do paint it kind of that bluish glowy color, which I'll probably do. Anyway, that is just one big resin hunk, and then there's like a metal bit that goes in the back, and like a hatch that's also metal. So because it's resin, I had to wash it. So you got to get the mold release off the resin so paint will actually stick to it. So that's the last thing I did last night before going to bed, was I washed it real quick. And just took like a mug, threw some water in it, put in a drop of dishwashing detergent, old toothbrush, scrubbed it up real good, rinsed it all off, and set it on a piece of paper towel to dry. That's basically how I clean resin, and it works out fine. So that thing will be done tonight. Like I'll glue that energy pack thing on the back of the turret, and I'll glue the thing on the hatch. I might put an antenna on it, but then again, I might not. Maybe one of the things that they've learned in getting their new fancy technology from the Rift is how to not have to use such big antennas all the time. So then I don't have to worry about snapping off said antennas all the time either when I travel with it. So yeah, I think that's not a bad idea. I think I might stick away from that. All right, got a couple more minutes left. What else have we got here? Alistair says, how do you de-glue models? Well, there is a chemical you can get, or, well, Zap-A-Gap, I think, makes stuff called debonder. And it smells a lot to me like nail polish remover, but I don't know that it is. But it smells a lot like it. And you can just kind of put that on there and let it soak into the glue joint a little bit, and then you can usually just kind of work it and pop it off. I got some glue on my shorts a while back, and I don't know if I can use that stuff on there because I think it will maybe also bleach my shorts, but I'm not sure. So, which is a bummer, but there it is. So, yeah, that's one way to do it. If you have a model that you just need to completely disassemble, another way I've heard about doing it is taking that model and putting it in the freezer, because it really brittles up all the glue joints, and then you can just sort of pop it apart. If it's plastic cement that you've glued that model together with, good luck. Plastic cement actually, to some degree, melts the two pieces of plastic that you're trying to glue together, and then they kind of meld together that way. So, yeah, it's not something you can just do, but CA glue, you can pop it. Sometimes you can just hold on to it and just sort of wiggle it back and forth and pop off an arm if you need to. Which is a bit of a bummer, like if that happens unintentionally. But if you're trying to do it because you want to reposition or something like that, it's not a bad idea. Otherwise, you use if you freeze the model, the downside is then all of the joints become a little bit more brittle. So if you're just trying to get one thing off, like if you're trying to get the base off of a model, then if you put some of that debonder stuff on there and let it soak for a little bit, not too much, because you don't want to get it all over the place, and then you can just usually work the base off, which is what I did. I would also take like an X-Acto and sort of kind of get it underneath the foot and then just pop it, and it worked out pretty well. You have to be careful because skeletons are flimsy, but it worked out pretty well. Somebody says AKA acetone as far as the fingernail polish stuff. Yeah, I think that sometimes that's the case, but it works pretty well. I think it's super, like if it's actual real acetone, I don't think you should use it on plastic minis, but fingernail polish is safe enough to use at least on your fingernails. And so I don't know, I've never had it melt any of my models, but I've never also like soaked them in it either. I just put enough down there to get the glue apart, and then I wipe everything off after I've popped off whatever things I needed to deglue. Other people are backing me up on the fact that plastic glue is a chemical bond and it's not really, you can't separate it, so that makes sense. Purple Power will dissolve super glue. Yeah, I've found if I use super clean to like get rid of paint very frequently, the models will fall apart very easily too. Which, in my opinion, if I'm trying to completely strip a mini, having it fall apart and me being able to glue it back together like the way I want to, or whatever, or use better glue joints or whatever, makes sense. I think it's a good idea. I have no problem with that. All right. Bob's does a debonder as well. Bob's is the type of paint that I use. Robert Smith Industries is the type of glue that I generally use. And evidently, according to Matthew Sears, they also have a debonder, which I should look for. But yeah. All right, well, it's like 11, and I've got to go. So I've got lunch coming up. I'm not going to be traveling again until, like I said, mid-July, so that'll be nice. I'm looking forward to getting some hobby done and things like that. So I want to thank everybody again for coming to the stream and hanging out and taking a look at the stuff in the Soul Wars box and asking questions and commenting and chatting with each other. I hope that people here in the chat are, kind of like maybe making friends, meeting people. I see a lot of conversations going back and forth, which is the kind of community that I definitely want to foster, so that's great. But that's pretty much it. I will see you all in 2 weeks, and I'll keep making the videos every Friday. So thanks for watching.